Chiropractors, if you're not tracking this number, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage. It tells you whether your practice is growing, gives you a good indication of how much your patients trust you, and it lets you work backwards from your ideal practice size. All right, so what is this number? Well, the main number is PVA, patient visit average. PVA is calculated by taking the total number of appointments over a period of time, dividing that by the number of new patients over that same period of time. And this will tell you, on average, how many times a patient will come to see you. Now, usually you want to calculate this number over a longer period of time, say a period of 6 months or so. And the reason you want to do that is because over a longer period of time, it can be a pretty good indication of how much your patients trust you and are satisfied with your service. So for example, it's unlikely that someone will come in once and then all their problems will be solved and they'll never get injured again, right? And so they'll probably come back to you at some point or another for something else. And so that's why usually over a longer period of time, this can give us an indication of how much your patients trust you and like you and are satisfied with the service because they're coming back for more. Now, this number can also tell you whether or not your practice is growing. Because if it's growing or even staying the same, it means that patients trust you enough to come back to you, and it means you don't have to continuously get new patients in order to stay at the same level, or at least you don't have to get as many of them. This kind of goes hand in hand with being able to figure out what your ideal practice size is and then work backwards from that using this number. Let's say your patient visit average is 5, and let's say your average appointment price is $50, which means that you make $250 per patient. Let's say you want to make $120,000 in your practice in a year, so $10,000 a month. Now, if we divide this by our 250 over here, we get 480 patients. So you need 480 patients over the course of a year in order to get your $120,000 in revenue for your practice. But if this number right here, let's say this number goes down to 3 instead, which means that this becomes 150. This number now becomes 800. So you need 800 patients in order to get your $120,000 in revenue for the year. So you can see here, keeping this number high is pretty important. And ideally, we want to grow it because that means your practice is growing and you need less and less patients in order to get to your ideal practice size. Now, the reason we break out these two numbers, patient visit average and average revenue per appointment, is that this gives you more in-depth insights into your practice and allows you to make better decisions. So as an example, let's say your patient visit average is something really high, like 20, but your average revenue per visit is only 10. This means you only make $200 per patient. Now, earlier you saw that if it was just 5 at $50 appointments, we make more money. Now, this is unlikely to be a realistic scenario, but you can see how if we break out these two numbers, it gives us a more in-depth view and we can look at whether or not it's your patient visit average that's low or your average revenue per visit. For most chiropractors, PVA is the more important metric because average revenue per visit tends to stay about the same. And so that's why in this one, we're focusing exclusively on PVA. So we now know why it's important and what we can do with it, but how do we improve it? Now, the first step is obviously to track it on a regular basis. Numbers that get measured get improved. And so once you're accurately tracking it on a consistent basis, then we can test stuff to see what will improve it. My experience with clients, the best way to increase your patient visit average is to reach out to them on a consistent basis in a way that's helpful and shows that you care. Now, real quick, if your patient visit average is really low compared to what you think your, let's say, ideal treatment plan size is, then you might just not be setting correct expectations. So for example, let's say you usually want to see people 10 times, and after they get to this 10 appointment mark, they tend to feel a lot better. After that, they can go to maintenance, right, if you do that. But if they're only coming in 3 times, they're obviously not going to get to this part where they feel a lot better. If you're expecting everyone who comes in to get to this 10 appointment mark, you might just be setting incorrect expectations if your patient visit average is only 3. Now, this is a slightly different number called patient compliance, but it does feed into patient visit average. And so if your patient compliance, like in this scenario, is pretty low, then you might just not be setting correct expectations. And so whenever you get a new patient that comes in, you probably want to just set correct expectations and tell them, look, it's probably going to take 10 or 12 appointments in order for you to get back to 100%. And that should help raise this patient visit average. And then a little tactical sub tip within this is to always book the next appointment from your last appointment. And so that way they always know when they're going to come in next. And if they start to feel better, they can just cancel the appointment. Ideally, you book all of these appointments ahead of time, but at least book the next one from the current one. That way you both have a good idea of when the next appointment is and you have clarity on everything. Like I said, if they get to feeling better, they can cancel the appointment. All right, let's go ahead and dive into the 5 strategies that increase patient visit average. All right, so number 1 is a handwritten letter. You can send these pretty much whenever you want, but if you send it whenever someone first becomes a patient, it'll make all these other strategies stand out more and become a lot more effective. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. You can say you appreciate them for trusting you with their health, you hope they're feeling better, and you look forward to seeing them at the next appointment. Like I said, it doesn't have to be super fancy. Our strategy 2 is an email newsletter. You just send them health information that helps them live a healthier life and reach their health goals and that kind of stuff. By the way, if you want help with this, we offer an email newsletter service. We offer it as a standalone service and as part of our business manager service where we go through your business metrics and figure out ways to improve it all. If you're interested, I've left a link at the top of the description. Strategy number 3 is to call or text them personally. This can be done during slow times or after hours, and you can check in on them and see how they're doing doing, especially with their most recent health issue that they just saw you for. You can also send them health information relating to their most recent health issue that they saw you for. If you're a new chiropractor or your patient visit average is pretty low, this one's probably one of the best ones you could do. Not very many doctors of any field reach out personally to their patients to see how they're doing. If you do, you'll stand out and you'll show that you care. This will increase your patient visit average and ideally bring in a lot of referrals as well. If you're getting hung up over this because you think it's unprofessional, I think it's worth mentioning that 1, this isn't a social call. You're checking in on them as a patient and seeing how they're doing. 2, most people like a kind of personal touch and feeling as if someone actually cares, especially in this day and age where a lot of technology has taken over the kind of personal touches that we're used to. And 3, as a bonus, most malpractice cases are filed against doctors that patients do not like or trust yet. And so this and all these other strategies help you move over into the like and trusted category. This makes you a better doctor because they're more likely to follow your instructions because they like and trust you, and it also helps your practice. Number 4 is to wish them a happy birthday. One chiropractor I talked to only did this to increase his patient visit average, and he just got on Facebook and messaged people whenever it was their birthday on Facebook and wished them a happy birthday. That's it. Now, whether you do this over something like an automatic email or over something like Facebook Messenger personally, it doesn't really matter, but either way, you might want to consider adding this into your practice as well. All right, the final one I have is to add checkup or maintenance plans into your practice. A lot of other doctors do this kind of stuff. So for example, a general practitioner has yearly checkups, or a dentist has once or twice a year cleanings. I think the way that you would explain this would be something like dentists have once or twice a year cleanings, and this is kind of the same thing except for a different part of your body. Some of your patients may want more appointments, some of them may want less, and some of them may want none at all. It depends on the patient. But again, going back to our set expectations, you always kind of want to have that next appointment scheduled and on the calendar so you both know when it's going to happen. But a checkup or maintenance plan can be a good way of continuing to see them and helping them with injury prevention or whatever new issue that arises. Again, like I said at the beginning, it's unlikely that someone will come in once, get healed, and then never have another injury again. And so offering something like this can be a good way of helping with injury prevention and whenever a new issue arises, dealing with it then. Depending on how you do this, this one may be a little bit of a slower increase in PVA because you might only see them once or twice a year, but over time this will increase your patient visit average and again, just make your practice better and then get you closer to your ideal practice size. All right, so that's all I got for you. I hope it was helpful. If you're interested in this kind of stuff and you want us to do something like this for you personally, this is the kind of stuff we help with. We dive into all your metrics and then help you implement custom strategies to improve your practice. If you're interested, just click the link at the top of the description and enter your info in the form. And if you like this kind of content and want to see more, consider subscribing. I'll talk to you soon.